I just counted it, we have 15 people here. You are so brave. Coming the last, 16 people now. Hey, cool. So coming to the last session of a PaaS and choosing us as your kick-out session, so to say, from the PaaS Summit. I hope you had a nice week here in Seattle at PaaS. As you already may notice from my accent, I'm German. This guy as well is German. We do the PaaS community in Germany, so we are very happy that you are joining here at PaaS and network with people here and having fun, getting new stuff in terms of the data platform. So what we want to present to you is a little bit of our favorite topic that's called data quality. And the next 75 minutes is a little bit around trip in terms of what Microsoft has to offer in the data platform around data quality. I think this is all stuff that you already know. So a little bit about us. I'm Oliver. As I said, I'm leading the platform or the data platform community in Germany. I was there, I think 16 years ago or 17 years ago, went to PaaS here, thought, wow, this is a cool idea, let's take it over to Germany, and we started that journey with PaaS in Germany. On the other side, I'm a data platform MVP. I'm running a company called, cryptical name called OH22. We are a Microsoft Data Platform partner. Do a lot of Microsoft stuff, do a lot of Tableau, and of course, as we are Germans, we also do a little bit of SAP. That's something we have to do. So, Tilman.
Yeah, my name is Tilman. I'm CEO of a also cryptical company called OH22 Information Services. I'm also data platform MVP and running the local chapter in Rhineland, so in Cologne. And what else?
You're a data quality maniac?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's correct.
And that's the reason why we do this kind of talk. We go a little bit into the data quality area, and we always start our talk with this kind of picture. Oh my God, bad data. I did a session in Portland on the weekend about common data model, and one of the things is that when we start these sessions for the community, I always ask the community, guys, do you have any data problems, any data quality problems? And you know, the joke I always do in Germany is like that. No, we don't have no problems at all. No problems at all. And I don't know how about you guys, but most of the time it's like this. Yes, of course. Not everything is quite nice in terms of data, and not every data stream is nice. Even you are using the nicest tools like Power BI or something like this, you will face these kind of problems with bad data. So what we do in this session is we go a little bit into a little bit of a theory thing, but just short, because we want to show you some more stuff that Microsoft offers in this section or in this sector. But the important thing that we want to give you in terms of why we're looking into this kind of data quality technology or in this kind of data quality processes is because this kind of slide is very, very old. I think it's from 2014, which a former Microsoft PM for data quality services did. And I think the important thing in this slide is people plus technology plus processes. That's the base of data quality, and bad data, so bad quality means bad business. And why is this? The reason for this is because everything has a price. And also data quality has a price. So if you look at this, you will see, okay, we have costs of data quality. And this is something that is really important to understand, because when we are talking about tools that maybe help us to achieve better data quality, this is the right part of the, or is it the left for you guys? I don't know. This is cost of optimizing data quality. But there's another part that is cost because of bad data quality. And this is something that you have to consider because there is something that is quite obvious that we call direct costs, because these direct costs directly will phase you. For example, you have a bad address and you send something by a parcel service and you get immediately the parcel back and you have to pay for that and it was for nothing. So these are costs that are impacting you directly. But the more dangerous thing is what we call indirect costs. So with indirect costs, we have the problem that you don't really get them directly in terms of, hey, this cost me so much money. You get them into things like customer churn, for example, because people are annoyed because you sent them 4 times, 10 times the same kind of letter. Just an example, when we have a booth here at the, or we had a booth at the exhibition hall, and people come in there and you scan them. And then, first of all, you scan them, and the second time they come around because we have some sweets on the booth, and you scan them the second time. So you have them twice in the system. Now, when you offer something like a product on data quality and you send them twice the same kind of email, people will say, hey, no. If they are even not able to deduplicate me in their database, I don't trust that product. I will not buy this product. Yeah? So you lose customers. You lose maybe product quality, and by that you lose customers. So this is a really, really important thing to understand, that these costs are there. Of course, and I don't know how it's with you guys, most of the managing people, data quality costs are something like, it's boring. That's the reason why we're so happy that so many people showing up. Because it's not so sexy like, hey, I'm doing a nice chart in Power BI or something like this. This is something that works behind the scenes, that nobody really can say himself, oh, I did this nice presentation. It's just something that you need to achieve, because in the end, it's something that indirectly influences your business. Yeah? On the other side, you will see the cost of optimization in terms of data quality. And here we have things like, for example, prevention, of course. Maybe this kind of scanner should prevent me to scan some people twice. That would be some of the costs that would go into data quality. But also something like discovery. Like, how can I identify in my database that a customer record is 2 times in this kind of database? Sometimes it's misspelled. Sometimes a naughty sales rep just enters some kind of crappy stuff in there, so you maybe do not understand that this customer is the same customer as that, or this product is the same as that. So you need to prevent and you need to discover this thing. And then the last one is quite difficult, because cleaning, of course, I need to remove this kind of things. But I think most of you are data professionals, and you know, hey, if you have a record in your database, that just doesn't mean you just have to delete the data, because it could happen that at one customer you have the activity of a sales rep. At the other customer record, you maybe have the activity and the purchases over your, let's say, web portal or over your shop or something like this. So maybe you have to put these things together, and maybe you have to find something like what we call the golden record, that you can merge everything together. So these 3 elements in terms of optimizing data quality will cost you a lot of money. And now, you know, Germans are always like this, oh, we need to do things like, we are engineers. We need to do things 100%. And I always tell my clients when we consult them in terms of data quality, I always say, you will never achieve 100%. And then they say, hey, what? Why I book you to help me to achieve data quality if you upfront say, hey, you don't achieve 100%. Yeah? The problem is, if you want to do this 100%, you have so many costs in prevention, in cleaning, in discovery, that it is not, from an economical perspective, the amount of costs you have because of the data quality is less. Yeah? So there's a kind of Pareto thing that you have to keep in mind. Okay? So the next thing what I want to show you is, of course, there are reasons. Yeah? And I already mentioned something like the data capturing, yeah? like for example, the scanner thing. So there could be a problem. People enter data wrong into the system. But there's also stuff like processes, like for example, you need to send the data from this device that we got on the booth to our CRM system. And maybe there's a mapping problem or something like this going on. Okay? And it could also be a problem of architecture. Yeah? Like we have clients where they have a lot of legacy systems, a lot of different landscape, and these systems need to be somehow standardized. In every of these systems, you will find some kind of customer data, for example. Yeah? In the ERP system, in the CRM system, maybe in the web shop, maybe in any kind of help desk system. Okay? And another thing which is quite interesting on data quality is the definition. A lot of people say, hey, what? Definition, data quality, what does this mean? Hey, if you ask your sales rep what is important about a customer data, and you ask the marketeer, or you ask your controller or something about it, you get about 3, 4, whatever, 5 answers, because people look into data and need data in a different way. So their approach to the quality of your data is also differently. So something like a definition, what do we have to capture for a customer or for a product record, is somehow very important and could result into bad data quality because it's different. The other part is the usage. So for example, we run PaaS in Germany. And one of the things that we have, of course, is, we get the emails of all our community people. Yeah? And of course, we are GDPR compliant and we try to use the data in the right way. But it could happen that we may have an opt-out in our database and we didn't check the filter, use the right thing, didn't capture the opt-out or something like this. So we use the data in the wrong way and get negative feedback on that. People are annoyed, exiting our community or something like this. That's wrong usage. And the other thing that is also important is time. So for example, we have about 4,000 members in Germany in terms of PaaS. And some of these guys may be already in there since 15 years, since we have this kind of community started, but maybe 5%, 2%, I don't know, went to AWS or Oracle or something else, and they are not longer interested in what we are doing, but they are still in our system, and they didn't opt out, so they are old, and we have to think about, hey, do we have some interactivity with them? So the data quality data gets old and maybe need to be cross-checked, okay? So what we did is for the processes when we go to a client and when we talk about data quality, we always put this into a process. Yeah? So we always look into this like a process in terms of how you achieve better data quality, how you optimize your processes. And what we do here is we start, first of all, to validate the data, to profile the data. So we need to understand what is in this kind of database, or what kind of entity do we have here? What kind of type of data do we have? And also, what is the data quality as such in terms of profiling? And when you profile things, you do distribution of data, so you look how the data is structured, et cetera, et cetera. If you did that, the next step, what we do in our workflow is we need to standardize the data. So we need to align the data so that in a field, for example, in an attribute of an entity, the data inside that attribute is the same from a content perspective, but also maybe from a structure perspective. For example, maybe we have a street name and a street number, but maybe we want to extract the number and standardize just on the names. Yeah. The next process is to clean. Clean means that we need to somehow get rid of everything that is wrongly written or something like this. Or there's a mismatch, or there's a character problem, etc. in there. And all these steps, they are going to the most important part of the optimization. That's match and merge. Why is this the most important thing? Because here we are going in and taking data that is already standardized and clean and try to match it in a way to understand, hey, do we have duplicated records in there? Or do we have something in our whatever whitelist, blacklist, or something like this so that we can understand that we need to exclude this or include this into something? And with the matching, and the matching process is not a one-to-one match. Everything that works into this is something like a fuzzy matching or something like this. So we do not have this really clear understanding of the data. And of course, if we did the match, then we need to find, for example, the golden record and merge everything together in a record. And that's really the most complicated thing in the whole process. After that, we can do things like clustering. We can do things like enrichment, like, for example, that we take another provider at the booth, at the exhibition. There was Melissa Data, for example. They offer things like additional data that you get for your addresses. Or maybe you want to geocode your data. The first thing you have to do, you have a clean, standardized address information so that the geocoding functionality works fine. So all of this is our process that takes sometimes just the first steps, the first 3 steps, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on where we are in the system. Talking about systems, what we try to do now, to give you an idea how the whole thing of Microsoft is working, is we try to look into some kind of data platform landscape. And there's a lot of theory in terms of what is the best modern data platform or landscape you can achieve. This is just a sample. But the important thing here from our side for you guys is to see exactly where we think that quality functions kick in the whole landscape of this kind of data platform. And you see that we have things in the ingest layer, we have integration layer, we have the governance layer. Yeah, every time there we have some points where we call this data quality gateways or data quality functions. And you get the slides later on, or the slides are already on the server, I think. And there you see that we describe what kind of functionality is is in there, and what this means in terms of where the different quality products are. And what we did is we put this kind of landscape and go a little bit deeper in there and having some kind of functionality in there to map this to processes, to functions that are important. And you see at the bottom in the ingest layer, we have this ETL or ELT functionality. And then we have things like, for example, data profiling, data lineage, or master data management in the layer, and then in the governance layer, for example, record management, performance management. We even have something like visual master data, because also if you, for example, are Power BI guys, for example, or doing a lot of reporting, it's very key to have the right visualization for the data. Because in the end, this is also a quality problem. If you choose a wrong visual, it could mean that the data that you're providing to the reader is maybe wrong because the combination of the data and the visualization is wrong. Okay. Now, what we did is we took exactly this kind of matrix and tried to map Microsoft products against it. Yeah? So we try to understand, hey, is there anything that Microsoft offers in these areas. And of course, Microsoft had such a great portfolio, so there is a lot of stuff in there. Yeah? And most of the time you see, we split this into on-prem and cloud. You see stuff like, for example, SQL Server. You see at the integration layer, you see things like, for example, SQL Server master data or SQL Server data quality service. Any one of you is using SQL Server master data, MDS? Wow, cool. Whoa, okay. And now the really killer question. Any one of you is using DQS, data quality service? Wow, okay. If we did this 2 years ago, there was maybe one hand or so. Now everything died. Yeah, now everything died. Yeah, and of course, this is really, of course, I think you as master data service user, you already heard that Microsoft doesn't really invest a lot into MDS anymore, yeah, which from our perspective is a shame because we think, hey, data quality matters, master data management matters, and we need products like this. We need products in the cloud like this, yeah, exactly. This is what we try to give you some kind of ideas because we look into this section more from a DQS side. Yeah, we in 2000, I think it started 2013. When Microsoft bought the Israeli company that was the initiator of DQS, we talked a lot with them. We built a lot stuff for them. So, for example, we built the matching component in integration service for them, just to give this product a little bit more drive. And we know from an architectural perspective, this is not really the coolest thing in the world, and the way how the software works is also not really efficient if you do it with large data sets or the user interface or something like this. So in this case, yeah, there was not really a lot of development in there, and it's even still in 2019, yeah, but there is not really a development that has taken place. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to go a little bit in the direction that we look into our matrix, and we just want to understand, is there anything that Microsoft still does in the data quality area? And what we thought is a good idea is that we maybe look into different products and see if there are any kind of data quality functions. Of course, what Microsoft does not have at the moment is really a replacement for DQS. Not in the cloud, nowhere. And also not something for master data services. Of course, they, for example, just told us that you can run now MDS with a managed instance, yeah? But this is not really a solution. This is just some kind of workaround thing that really doesn't make sense from our perspective. But what we see here are some kind of symbols. So we want to start, and now we are just going into demos, just to give you an idea what there is. Maybe some of them you already know. Maybe some stuff is new for you. Who is using Power BI? I guess everyone, or? Yeah. Who of you already worked with Power BI in the case that they said, oh, wow, Miguel announced a profiling functionality. So what Microsoft did, and I was really happy when I saw it the first time, is Microsoft built a kind of profiling functionality in Power BI Desktop. So what's happening here is, if you go into Edit, you will see that there are some profiling functionalities available. How to get to these? In View, you will find this part here, column distribution, column profile, and column quality is in there. Yeah? So what Microsoft thought of is, if you are in a self-service environment, it could be quite useful to understand, okay, how many valid records do we have? How many errors do we have in there? How many empty values do we have in there? Also, the distribution of the data itself is in there. And the interesting thing in Power BI is, of course, they do the profiling just on the sample of records. So you see, this data set is a JSON file with about 10,000 records. Was it 10?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 10,000 records. And you see it just sampled it over 1,000. So that's the normal thing. I didn't find, maybe some of the people, they fixed it? Oh, cool. This is something I didn't know. Ah, there it is. Okay, cool. Thank you, Pavel. Okay, because I would just want to show you that, of course, you can use this functionality as such. If you click into, for example, into something like the country, yeah, you will see below here you get some column statistics. You get a value distribution. So this is already a quite small step in terms of how to identify any kind of problems you may get with your data. The interesting thing is that when you look into the functionalities of Power BI, of Power Query as such, you will also find things in here that you will see on data flows, for example. And here I found the switch between the records itself. So I hope this will work now. You can go into options, for example, and in the global options you can say, hey, this is based on the top 1,000 rows or on the entire data set. Yeah? So you get the same function in data flows. Yeah? And for the folks who are doing Power Apps, you also have the same functionality here when you're looking into the data flow. And come on, this is the similar experience, and Microsoft built this experience in the same way. So what you see here, just in purple, but it's a similar way. So what Microsoft built in there is like for all the data acquiring functions, they built in the functionality of a profiling solution. Yeah? Of course, if you do things like profiling, this is not the sufficient version, but it is a small step, a small approach in terms of getting an idea what you can do with the profiling. Okay. The only thing where they didn't do it was Excel. Or maybe, Pavel, you saw that in Excel as well? No? No. Okay. Okay. You are not an Excel user anymore. Okay. But in Excel, as you see here, it's not something that maybe it will come in the next release of Power Query in Excel, because I think for a lot of people that are working with the data query function of Power Query in Excel, it would be also quite useful to do this. Yeah? Okay, so that's the part in terms of profiling with Power Query. Yeah? Another thing that is quite interesting is an SDK that Microsoft offers via GitHub for machine learning. Who of you is aware of that? Cool. That's good. Because this little SDK, or little, it's not really little, but this SDK also offers some kind of nice functionality. And what I will do is I will shortly show you the profiling function of that SDK. So what I'm currently doing is here I'm having a Databricks cluster. Yeah, so it's a Spark cluster, and here in the libraries, and I hope this will come back soon, there's a library in here that you can upload from a Python repository that is called Azure ML Data Prep. And the cool thing about this is that this kind of functionality delivers you functions in terms of profiling and in terms of data preparation. So it helps you on the one side to prepare data for machine learning projects. Yeah. But on the other side, for us, it's like, oh, cool, we can use these things as well from a data quality perspective. So the first thing I just want to show you is that we have this package in here. And for example, you see here, oops, come on, try to be like this. Yeah, here we go. So this is the package I'm using. And what this thing does is in this notebook, I can use the functionality of that package in Python. And I can do things like, for example, I can load data quite easily. So for example, it delivers you a thing that calls dataprep.readCSV. And you do not have to define anything like, for example, if you know Python and you maybe have to add all the attributes to it, you can just read that DSV file and control it. And it's even more, it even gives you a functionality that does this.
There's a question.
Oh, there's a question? Yeah, Pavel. That's true. On Pandas. On Pandas at the moment, yeah.
Would that be something possible to run in like Azure Data Studio, local data in a notebook?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Can you shortly switch to number 3?
Okay. So I think my developer has an answer.
So this is not Data Studio. This is local Jupyter Notebook on my machine. It's Jupyter Lab.
And maybe you can zoom in because it's so small.
Yeah, we'll just execute it. And I just use the same data prep library here in this Jupyter Notebook. And you will see this, I think, the same or similar output for this file. It may be a little bit slower on my local machine. But it's a standard Python library, and so you can import it also, or should also import it in Data Studio.
Okay.
For this part.
The cool thing that you are using is that's the stuff I just want to talk at is you see that dataprep.auto-read file. Yeah. So what this kind of SDK delivers to you is a kind of thing that auto-detects the format of your file. Yeah, so you do not get these problems in terms of, what is the right file? Does it have the right format? This is something that the system does for you. And maybe you talk a little bit about the profiling function here?
Yeah, okay. So this is just a function get profile, and you get out of this this library all the information for each column, so the data type, the minimum, maximum value. You have quantiles in there so that you can see the distribution of values, missing values, not missing values. So different information about the data so that you know what is inside, you get a feeling of the data, and you know where you have to clean some columns or where not. So it's just overall information about the data. Yeah,
but you can work as well with the data. The result set of this is something you can reuse for all of your processes.
For that
I'm just having the same example here on my side. So for example, if I do the profiling here, you will see that's the output of my profiling. So you get this for each field in this kind of record. You see exactly the profiling functions of min, max, counts, etc. But the cool thing about this is, for example, the function is quite easily to approach. But this kind of SDK does even more. It can, from a profiling perspective, profiling is just one function of the whole SDK. Yeah? I will show later a little bit more of the SDK. Maybe you put the FuzzyWuzzy thing on, because the SDK itself is something like, it is predefined by Microsoft. And I don't know anyone, is there anyone in, maybe Pavel, you know that. Do you still know Pendleton? There was a project called Pendleton. That was a really nice project that looks a little bit like the Power Query thing, but produced, instead of mQuery code in the background, it produced Python code. Yeah? And what it did, it leveraged exactly this kind of SDK. But unfortunately, Microsoft kicked it because maybe it was too good in terms of getting somehow a problem for Power BI. Okay, so we have a profiling functionality. But in this case, what we are talking about now is something that we go a little bit more into the matching functionality of our data quality workflow. And also there are some open source libraries that you can leverage, and you will show this.
Yes, it's a quick example. It's a library called FuzzyWuzzy.
If you zoom it, then everybody can see it.
We often work with different libraries to detect duplicates. So we have our own product we showed here at the conference at the booth. But here we are using open source library, which is called FuzzyWuzzy, and we just like to show a little bit the result. So here I have a typical example which comes from the original DQS version. So we have the different typings of Chef Anton's Cajun seasoning, and if I call the function partial ratio, I get a result of 100. So this is the threshold with this function. But I can also use some typical misspelling of my name, and here I get a threshold of 81%. So this is something just in the library. Normally, if you use SQL Server, you have Soundex inside with MDS. I think it was double metaphone inside or something like that. And this is a similar library here with additional algorithms to find the best matching. And here are some more algorithms inside. You can just execute them, and you see there are additional or different results of the threshold. And you have to figure out what matches best for you and for your data you have to check against each other. So if we talk about our product, we have 10 or 11 different algorithms inside. And we always say if you have something like Levenstein, it's a distance algorithm, it's really good to match for postal codes or something like that. But if you have a phonetic algorithm, you will not choose it for a postal code, so it makes no sense. And so you have to check for the different algorithms which algorithm matches best for which data.
Okay, but the message I think we want to give you is that this is completely open source stuff that you can use, and this is Python, and of course you'll be able also to integrate that into SQL Server.
Yes, for sure. You can integrate these Python libraries also into a SQL Server, and then use this functionality directly inside SQL Server in a T-SQL script, and then call a Python library or Python script to deduplicate your data.
Okay.
But it's simple, but I think you have more in the data prep SDK.
Yeah, I have a more advanced function I would like to show you in the data prep SDK. So this is called FuzzyGrouping. And FuzzyGrouping is something quite interesting because what it does is in this little call, I check a source column, for example, inspections.businesscity. And I give it a new column name called city grouped. And I give it a similarity threshold, yeah, and a similarity score. And what the system is doing now, or what this function of the SDK is doing now, it checks the column and looks into the column if it sees similar values and tries to group these values together. So what you see a little bit lower here is something that it looks into this and see SF, and it sees San Francisco, yeah, and it sees again SF. And you see in the column city group that it grouped everything together to San Francisco. Yeah? So what the system is trying to do here is exactly what I mentioned in our workflow, that in this kind of matching and merging process, we need an identifier to what kind of group this belongs to. And this is something that this little function does quite well. And you can play around a little bit with the way how this works. So you can define the threshold, so you can play around with the threshold a little bit more. But you can also do things like, I did this a little bit more down here. You can also do things like, for example, you define a different threshold based on the threshold. You get different clusters. You can describe something in a new way. So, for example, you can say, hey, this is no longer San Francisco, so I just call it Cisco. And what the system is doing, it looks into the canonical value, and this is the top value of that has to be grouped, and I can't call this by my own. Yeah? And then it tries to understand the duplicates in here and put them together and creates a new, in this way for Python, a data frame that you can reuse, and then you can export that to something else. So you can clean and merge your data with this kind of SDK quite easily. And again, this is something, I did this in Databricks, which maybe is an expensive system, but the SDK itself, yeah, for machine learning is free. So you can just download this from GitHub, and you have all this kind of data quality functionality handy if you know Python. That's the only thing that is important to understand here. So this is the Python section. And now, of course, as I have a developer left of me, and it's a Microsoft developer, what the Microsoft developer wants to do, of course, is he wants to use .NET, correct?
Yes, for sure.
Of course. So now we do the similar thing in .NET, correct?
Yeah. So there's...
But also, hey, what kind of classes do you have? What classes
Good
do
classes.
the audience have? No, this is so small.
Yeah, I will zoom it, just a moment. So there's also Data Prep SDK.
He's a developer, you know.
.NET Data Prep SDK you can find on GitHub. And with this SDK, you have similar possibilities than with the Python SDK. And what I like to show you first is what Oliver mentioned before in Python. You also have here a function called auto-read-file. And so you can just import a CSV file with C# and you don't have to specify anything. Just auto-read the file and the system automatically identifies the structure of the CSV file. Then we also have these get profile. So we also get the profile out of the CSV file so that we can analyze the data a little bit more. But what I really like here in this C# code is, especially if you work with Power BI, there are similar functionalities, you know, from Power BI. You can say something like keep columns, and then just define the columns of the zip file you like to keep, and all other columns will be deleted. Then you can just convert different columns to string. So just specify the to string and the column name, or you can say also to bool, and then you can also specify the column name, but then you can also specify here what are the different values and how you handle these. So that you can say true values is an epsilon, false values an n, mismatch should be handled as false. And you can also replace NA values. So there are different options in here. You can just replace values where you have an NA against a null value. You can replace empty strings against null values, and so different things here.
So as a developer, where do you use this? Is this something you use as a .NET guy when you want to do data quality? What kind of step is this in our workflow where you use this functionality?
So there are complete different steps. This is more to like the name of the SDK. It's a data preparation SDK. So if I like to use my .NET data or my data in .NET as an example for machine learning part. So if you look into Visual Studio, you have now AutoML inside of Visual Studio. You can generate machine learning models inside of Visual Studio with 5 clicks. The system learns automatically out of your data which algorithm is the best to get some specific work or result out of it. And for these steps, you can use the data prep SDK.
But this means from our workflow, this is part of standardization and cleaning, because stuff you do like replacing values, grouping values, or excluding stuff, this is part of our standardizing and cleaning exercise.
Yes, correct.
And you now, as a .NET developer, you can include this into processes directly in your .NET application.
Exactly. So I think Microsoft is working here more and more that you can get better results out of .NET. At the moment, I have a console application, and what you see is after the data is loaded, I have the profile, and this is something Oliver showed before with the notebooks. So nobody will look in the console and look into the profile. If you do that, you don't need to think about data quality. But you can see the results here as an example. So at the beginning, I have here 5 columns inside. Somewhere I have only 4 columns because the last column, the minimum volume, is null value. And after I replaced these values, now I have here also a maximum minimum volume inside. So this is the result of this. But you can look to the future. It's not working at the moment. We tried it, but if you go to Jupyter, you see here, we also have in Jupyter notebooks, we can write .NET code. And it works completely fine, but this library at the moment does not work in my Jupyter notebook. But you don't need to be a developer sitting in this Visual Studio to develop some of these things. You can also choose Jupyter notebooks in the future and build these complete processes Oliver showed before in Databricks.
Mm-hmm. And who of you is aware of this new flashy thing called Synapse, Azure Synapse? Yeah. If you knew that, this is also, you can leverage exactly this stuff in this kind of environment. Because it's open source, it's integrated. You can use, as Saviv said, you can use .NET, you can use Python. So what the favorite flavor of your programming language, you do need to care on learning Python or R. You can use, for example, .NET. And for me, this is something, if you think about our process and you think about the point where you say, hey, I want to prevent that we create wrong data, you can leverage these functionalities in your own application or in your own analytical stream that you may work with the SDK. Now, when we talk about profiling, when we talk about data quality, one of the things that we had in our environment is something that a lot of people don't know. Do you know this one? Anyone? You or you? Oh, are you using it? No? No? Tested it, but it failed? No? Okay. Why? Just curious?
The biggest thing I found is to
Okay.
It's a manual load and refresh process.
Exactly.
It's gonna work.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So the answer was there's a lot of he has a lot of stuff on-prem, and the way how this crawler works is a lot of manual stuff to get the metadata into it. But for all the other guys,
Did you really name it crawler?
did I name it crawler? Okay, it's not really a crawler. But maybe you tell a little bit for the other guys who may not know that product.
So at the moment, so the idea is really good. If you have clean data, you like that people in your company use this clean data, and not everybody has to prepare the data by itself newly. But with the Azure Data Catalog, you have the possibility to create what they call assets. So an asset could be a table, it could be a database, it could be a KPI, and you can register these assets in the Azure Data Catalog. And for that, there's a special tool, and this tool
Which I
is
call
running.
a crawler.
You know, yeah. You have to install this tool locally, and then you can connect with this tool to one of your data sources, maybe in a table in your database. And the Azure Data Catalog then pushes the information about this table to the data catalog. No data, you can say, okay, I like to, you can say I like to push 200 records as a sample, but normally the tool only publish metadata to the data catalog. If you publish also these 200 records of data, you can also publish something like a data profile. But the idea is more to say, okay, I'm search here for product as an example, and hopefully it's a little bit faster now. Hey, my session expired. Okay, perfect. Yeah, you can search for something you like, for some information you need, or for a table you like to use in some analysis, and
Switched off the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
No.
And then you get, you find all the information or all the data you registered, all the assets you registered in the Azure Data Catalog. And with the search for product, I get all assets where we named product, where we have columns inside product, so it's also crawling the metadata. And I will try it again just to show it to you. Yeah, so I get all this data. And if I click on a specific asset, then I have here the possibility to see the server name, the database name, the schema where this table come from. I can also click here and say view connection strings, and as a developer, I get the connection strings for this specific table for ADO.NET, ODBC, and so on. I can also go here and say open in.
Okay, sorry.
And then I can open directly this table in Excel, in Power BI Desktop, in Power Query.
Did you mention the tags?
I would just go to it. You can also add an expert for an asset. So I can say here, okay, my expert for this is now Oliver.
Oh, God.
Oliver was not found in the system. I have to use your AD account for that.
Yep.
I can define tags, and there are two types of tags. I can use my own tags, or I can use system-wide tags, which are created by an admin. I can have a look into my data if I have a preview uploaded. I can then see information about my columns and add a description to these columns. I can see a data profile. I can define a documentation. And if I have this data out of a database, I also have related data. So if there are foreign keys or something like inside, I references to other tables, I see that. But the problem here at the moment is that you have register all these assets manually if there are changes in this asset on your on-prem system, you have to update these assets here. It will not handle this automatically. And there's only one data catalog per company. So if you have, if you use this in Azure, the Azure Data Catalog per tenant, you have only one Azure Data Catalog. Yeah, that's what it is at the moment. But it's for free for, I don't know how many assets, but there's a free version of it, and for many companies, it's totally enough.
So this is an Azure version, and I think on build, at a certain stage, somebody told in the presentation, so it's not something that is under NDA, that Microsoft is currently working on a version 2 of this. So maybe this will be better in the future. You already?
Yeah, we purchased talent.
Okay, you purchased talent? Wow.
Doing a lot of this right now.
Okay, so the answer was here, they purchased talent. It was quite expensive, correct? Yeah.
It depends.
It depends. Okay, you did a good deal with them. Okay. So yeah, of course there are other vendors on the market like Informatica or Talent or something like this. They offer similar things. But Microsoft is currently working, I think, on a version 2. When this will happen, when this will go to market, I have no idea. But maybe this again gets a little bit better in terms of the usability of this. Because the idea from a data quality perspective, having something like a register of all my data sources in the company where I can just click on and then use them into in Power BI or something like that, will help a lot of people to find the data sources with the right quality and the right metadata information about this. Yeah. Good. So the next thing we want to show you is how we are doing with time. 15 minutes. Good. So the next thing we want to show you is something which is a little bit different. Who of you is aware of the common data model? Already? Good. Okay. So who of you is building Power Apps or something like this? One? Okay. So one of the things when they introduced the common data model in the first version, I thought of it and I looked into it and I said, whoa, cool. This is something that I maybe can use because this kind of tool is a kind of database service, but it is developed for guys who are using Power Apps. So that was the first iteration of it. So if you are in the Power Apps portal, you will see that there is a section called Data. And this kind of section has things that called entities. And this is quite interesting because you see there are some entities in there. And the interesting thing about the Power Apps or this kind of common data model, this is driven by the Microsoft Dynamics, so the guys from the Dynamics systems like AX or CRM. And what they try to do is they try to establish a common data model that gives you the possibility to, for example, see a customer centrally as one entity that other applications, like for example Microsoft CRM or your Power Apps application, can map to it. Yeah? That means for this, it means a kind of master data system. I asked the guys, Robert Bruckner, who is one of the architects of it, I said, hey Robert, is this your new approach to MDS? They said, no way, this is just for our developers and so on. That was, I think, 2 years or something like this ago. But the interesting thing here is that you can create your own entities. You can adjust entities as such. And one of the things I did is I just created an entity that is called country master data. Yeah? So you see this here in the portal. You get this ugly flag at the front. Yeah, okay. But this little thing here has a lot of possibilities you may know from Master Data Service. It's definitely not the functionality of Master Data Service, but what you can do here is you can build your own entity with a lot of attributes, and you see that there are data types. Yeah? Some of the data types, or the data types itself, are not very specific. It's just text, it's just something like unique identifier, but there are also things in there that they are called lookup. Yeah? So everyone who is working, for example, with Microsoft CRM will identify, this is a kind of way how Microsoft CRM works under the hood. But the interesting thing is, you see, there is more stuff in there. Things like, for example, this is a requirement, a required attribute. This is a searchable attribute. And you see at the top here, there's a lot of stuff, like relationships, business rules, views, forms, dashboards, charts, etc. The interesting thing here is that, I can relate the entities together, so I can build relationships between them. I can build business rules on top of them. So I can say, okay, this kind of attribute has to be in this kind of value range. So everybody who works with MDS knows that there is some functionality for a domain or for in a model for a certain entity, for a certain attribute. I can create these kind of business rules. By far, these business rules are not as good as the ones that you currently have in master data, but it's an approach to it. And the interesting thing of this compared to master data is, of course, I have the possibility to run the whole thing as a cloud service. Yeah? So I have this thing in the cloud, and one of the things I can do here, and I hope this will work now if the internet connection is still there, I can go in here and say, all right, here I have an Excel add-in. And again, for the MDS guys, you would say, oh, yeah, I know this kind of stuff. Of course, the Excel add-in here is not as powerful as the MDS one, but it gives you the possibility, for example, for this country data, that I am maybe a data steward in your company, and I'm working on that. And I hope that this, okay, yes, you need to sign in again. So what the system is doing, it's communicating now with a common data model with my entity, takes the data from this kind of entity and gives me the possibility to edit it in my Excel spreadsheet. So I am the data steward and I can maintain this kind of data. In addition to this, if you see, I click on this kind of table, like status, this is a kind of lookup functionality here. So I can choose the right standardized values for this attribute out of my lookup list here in this Excel add-in. And of course, I can publish this stuff back to my common data model. And the interesting thing here is that you have this functionality for the data steward available in a tool where he can do mass changes, etc. If you want to give this to somebody else, maybe from the business, there's an additional thing, because we are talking about Power Apps. So Power Apps has the possibility, I can create a Canvas app, so I can use this on my mobile phone, or I can do even more stuff here. And I can do a so-called model-driven app. So this is this version here. And the model-driven app looks like this. Here you see I have even more functionality in there. It already auto-creates for me a functionality that lets me manage this kind of entity. I can email a link to somebody. I can create a Microsoft, oh no, it's not Flow anymore, it's Power, what is it, Power Automate thing now. I can export the stuff again to Excel. So for example, if I do something like here, I say United, I can check into this kind of, oops, wow, cool. The demo got is nice to me. Yeah, well, cool. Okay, try to refresh this again. Oh, that's good for my demo. Maybe I'm looking for something like Germany. Maybe it's better. Oh, let's see. No, cool. Okay. So yeah, the demo god is bad with me because what I wanted to show you is I want to edit this and I want to switch into something like this here. This is a Power BI, a very, very cool Power BI visualization I did. But the visualization itself is not the point. The visualization is completely not relevant. The importance is I'm using here some labels for my graphic. And these labels are based on the common data model. And now, anyone who already thought, hey, well, common data model, I already know common data model because the common data model is the base of the new data flows I'm using in Power BI. Not really these ones. These ones are the common data model that is based on a common data service. So Microsoft does it really complicated for us. But the interesting thing is, I can use this and I can add a connector to my entity that is a common data service connector. So I can go in here and I can search for common. And you will see that there is a common data service. Yeah? And this connector connects exactly to the entities I'm maintaining. And I can use these, and now you get my very complicated model. Yeah? So you see my country master again, and I just combine that with the sales record I have. Yeah? So I can use this to maintain my dimensions, maintain my master data in this way. And normally, if this system would work, I don't know why, it's normally quite stable. Normally, if I would change something like this, I would refresh it immediately. Then the system will immediately show the right numbers. And one of the things that you can do as well in Power BI is I can go in here, for example, and I can choose a Power App. Yeah? And, oops, no, that's not something I want to do here. So if I go in here and I want to choose a Power App here, and in here I can also take the Power App itself and I can work with this kind of data here and can integrate this a kind of Canvas app I have created into the whole scenario here. Yeah? So if it would work, you would see exactly, and I hope this will work. Let's have a look to this one here. So you will see something like, come on. Yeah? So it's a very simple version. Yeah? So you will see something like this in Power BI. You can go in here and you can edit the data. So all this kind of stuff is available, and you can combine that. So in total, what this should mean for you is with a common data model and some Power Apps, you are able to do a similar thing like what master data can do in a certain way. Of course, it is not capable to help you with all the functionalities of master data, especially things like hierarchy management and all these stuff. But it gives you a little small way of doing it, and maybe not using whatever SharePoint lists or something like this to do it. Okay? So, all right. Now, the last thing for today is something that we want to look a little bit into SSIS and integration service runtime, what this can offer to us. Who of you is using integration service? All friends of Tillman. Okay, so let's have a look to this.
So it's a little bit about our product, but also to mention that there are other vendors like Informatica. They're doing similar things. So this is just in Excel, our add-in is similar to MDS, where we defined a knowledge base, and inside knowledge base we defined different domains. It's like tables and columns. And maybe you define that USA has a master US, America has a master US, so this information will be converted or translated or replaced from the normal member to the master. And out of this information I defined here in the Knowledge Base Explorer and my domains, I export a CDM file. So with that, I can create on my Azure Data Lake in a specific file system, I can create a model file, which Oliver showed before, for the CDM. And then I have this specific information from the knowledge base created there in the CDM folder. This is something you can see here in my Azure Storage Explorer. There I have a model JSON file, which I created out of Excel. And then I have Visual Studio with my SSAS, and I have sources. Then I have our component to clean the data, what I showed before with the America to US and Europe to EU and something like that. And then I have my CDM destination. And with the CDM destination, I connect via SSES to the before created model file, can do my data mapping from my columns here in SSAS to the information from the model file. And if I run these, the system loads the data, cleans the data, and store it in my CDM destination. And then we go to Power BI, and with Power BI, I create an external data flow directly on the CDM folder. So it's like the data flows you can create in Power BI, but an external data flow, you can't edit it in Power BI. It's just that Power BI gets information out of the model file and the data out of that. And if I then go to Power BI somewhere, I have a nicer report than Oliver before. And at the moment, it's just connected to the data flow. And if I press refresh, hopefully it will show 60 records instead of 45, because it reloads the data out of the common data model and out of the data flow, and I have new data inside my report. Yeah, and you can see here that the system writes new files here.
Okay, so looking at this, of course, Talent, Informatica, they all have additional ways of doing it. The reason why we are showing this is just to give you an idea that, of course, Microsoft has enough potential in terms of all these areas where you can use. And of course, you can combine stuff like, for example, an external vendor like Informatica or like, for example, us, into your data quality process. So you're not somehow lost in this way. And you can combine this with the technologies that are for free, like, for example, the SDK. So you're using these things in combination to it. So even that Microsoft does not provide you a one-shop data quality solution, we think if you combine the portfolio and you're using the different technologies that Microsoft offers, you are still able to build this kind of process of a good data quality solution in any kind of analytical system you build. Or, as Tillman just showed with the .NET code, you can also include this into your business applications in a way that is, if you are a Microsoft.NET programmer, for example, fine. If you are doing more Python stuff, fine. If you're doing more R stuff, fine. If you're a SQL Server guy, integrate this into your SQL Server. So you have all these options to do this. Some things are for free. Some things are with a certain price tag. But of course, you definitely have the possibilities and the capabilities to challenge the data quality problems. With this, we have exactly matched the time. So I hope this session gives you some kind of impressions, some kind of ideas, stuff that you maybe want to test. The slides are on the server. If you have any questions, Unfortunately, we have to leave for the campus, but on the slides there are our email addresses. We are community guys. We are happy to answer everything by email or by Twitter if you like. Guys, I wish you a nice Friday evening. Wherever you go from here, safe travels, and thank you very, very much for this crowd at the last session to join us. Thank you very much for this.